And a little one like this that will go to site buildings like to.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Special Finance Committee meeting of October 9th, 2024. This is the first meeting of the series of budget meetings. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the Coast Salish people, specifically the Shannon First Nation, on whose territory this district of Machosen building stands, and our neighbor, the South First Nation. We recognize and respect our First Nation governments, all of whom have a long-standing relationship with the land and sea waters that continue to this day. Committee, we have an agenda before you this afternoon. Are there any additions or changes that you wish to make?
I think just the correspondence.
Oh, yes, the correspondence. Okay, so we've got 2 pages here. One has it's an addendum to the staff report with capital costs and one-time expense updates. So we'll put that under us where the staff report is, 3A. And the second one is correspondence from a resident, Ms. McPherson, and put that under number 4, correspondence.
Yep.
Anything else?
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Just wanted to also say that Mayor Little is in transit, so she'll be arriving a little bit late. She has CRD meetings on Wednesdays. So we'll go on to number 2, which is public participation. If there's anyone in the gallery this afternoon that would like to speak at the podium, please state your name and street in which you live.
Thank you. Jim McPherson, Eagle Tree Place. First of all, I'd like to maybe comment that from what I've seen, I rather like the process that's being adopted this year in terms of having public participation at regular intervals during the course of the exercise. My comments today are more by observation, I think, than anything else, but I certainly appreciated Mr. Creek's financial projections and the tax implications that were drawn out in the report that he submitted for today. The thing that really strikes me, however, is that with the mandatory requirements that we're going to have to address in policing, ECOM 911, general administration, and bylaw, we're looking at approximately $243,000 in expenditures which are already committed and which have to be paid for. This basically amounts to a 6.57% increase in taxes, which is really a huge impediment to the development of any kind of future programming over the course of this coming year, if we want to try to maintain some kind of a reasonable increase in taxes. So with that in mind, I just want to compliment Mr. Creek in terms of the information he has provided, and which provides really a good solid base for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the reports. 3A, staff memo. Mr. Creek could walk us through the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this will get the ball rolling anyway for our 2025-2029 financial plan. We're just going to be hopping into covering the major components of a budget, in case anybody has forgotten from 5 months ago or is new. So big one, operating, keeping the lights on, having everybody available to do their job.
Sorry, is there an issue with
Jeff, can you move the podium up, or you're too
How about that?
You're too tall.
Can you sit at the chair? Sit over there.
Sit over there.
Thank you.
Just press the one. All right. How about that?
Great.
Good. Perfect. All right. So operating is the big one we need to cover on a daily basis. Paid all the staff, keeps the lights on, pays all the utilities, services, policing, fire, all the good stuff. Next up would be capital, maintain roads, rebuilding roads, parks, trails, buildings, that kind of thing. Third up would be any type of special project that might arise. This year's been accessibility plans, active transportation plan, started digitizing records around here, that type of thing. And then reserves, which have been set up great by council and previous councils. It's helped us reduce the cost of the policing. In 2022, because of the 2021 census, Machosen went over 5,000 people, ended up having to pay 70% of the RCMP costs. And because of the good reserve that was set up, we're able to reduce the tax increases for the next 5 years, maybe even a little bit longer, because the RCMP doesn't actually provide a full number of people, don't have enough staff, unfortunately. So today's goal is going to provide that overview of financial plan. We're going to start off with the operating budget review for policing, general administration, and bylaw. That'll give some details regarding what the budget increases are going to be needed for those, and then provide any answers to questions they might have about the budget. So, new timeline from page 5 in the pinks. We had adjusted the November meeting to being November 12th from November 7th. The rest of them sounded pretty good to everybody. So October, November, we're going to cover all the operating budgets for all the departments: building, planning, fire, public works, the school, recreation, that type of thing. December, we're going to get into our special projects and capital review. January, after we've received the BCA assessment information, we'll be able to come up with a draft tax rate and then finalize some numbers for budget. February, March, that's where we'll get really close to knowing exactly what's been approved. And in April, we'll be able to set the final tax rate after BC assessment submits the revised assessment roll. And then we'll be able to pass our financial plan bylaw and move on with the rest of the year. So these are all the departments that are involved in our operating budget. So legislative and general government, council, and general admin, like the CAO, CFO, bylaw staff. We've got protective services, the police, fire, emergency programs, building inspections. Then we got engineering and public works, municipal planning, parks and trails, and the recreation and culture and the community. So the big ones this year are coming from policing. So unfortunately, the province has decided to not pay for Ecom 911 anymore. They're going to stop paying as of March 31st. And then we have to pay for April through December. And that comes to $119,000. And that is roughly 3.3% tax increase just based off of that alone. Now, council has been doing good pushback because that's for every municipality on the Southern Island. So they've all written letters, had meetings, and they are making some progress, it sounds like. But as of right now, I have to put in the budget just to be conservative to make sure that we do have something to cover it. If by April it's been canceled and the province is willing to pay for it, we'll pull it out and we'll come back here, have another presentation to everybody and show, hey, we just saved $120,000, everything's good, we'll reduce our tax increase for everybody and should be all right. Next one up was the Vancouver Island Major Crime Unit. That's also a new cost for 2025. That's estimated to cost us $35,000 per year. And then slowly increasing from there just based on inflation and that kind of thing. That's also kind of up in the air as to what's going to happen. They did inform us that they will have to slowly phase it in. As they don't have enough staff for the regular RCMP, they can't just put in a brand new unit and have it fully staffed. So we're budgeting for 35, the max that they can charge us, but might end up being only 50%, 60%, something like that, and we'll just work our way up to the full total. Next up is our new collective agreement for the unionized staff. So our current collective agreement ends at the end of 2024. It's going to be getting negotiated by QB here, sounds like in the early part of 2025. So we're not going to have a real idea of what that is going to cost. We've got some estimates. That's what I've put into the budget currently. It's unlikely that I'll have a final number by April for the financial plan, but it shouldn't be too far off. So if it's really bad, we'll come back with a financial plan amendment, do another council meeting, everybody will get to find out what's going on with that. And then the next up was we added another 5,000 to the budget for voting machines for the 2026 election. That was in order to avoid having to do hand counts and paying staff overtime. I heard that at the previous election, people were here until 2 a.m. counting the votes. If we lease these from BC election, it'll save us in the long run from having to pay everybody overtime. Not too sure, we're still waiting on a quote from BC elections to find out the lease cost, but I'm hoping it'll end up being less than the 5,000, but there's budget for that right now. That money will just end up going into reserve at the end of 2025, since we're not going to get the machines until 2026, but this will just smooth up the tax increase that might be needed for 2026.
Mr. Creek,
Yeah.
when do you want questions? Now, or do you want to go through your thing? Or
Ooh.
you
Yeah,
seem
throw them
like,
at me now.
okay.
What do you got?
Sorry, you seem like you're on a roll. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't know if you know the answer to this, but sometimes the collective agreements take a while to negotiate, because I think the current agreement was actually only negotiated or completed in December, like December of 2023.
Oh,
So, as I recall.
yeah.
But just to clarify though, even if it's negotiated a year from now, there's bound to be retroactive pay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
As if it gets passed in 2027, we're going to have to do a lot of retro pay
Yeah.
back to the start of 2025.
Okay.
We won't have to worry about them not working. They'll still keep operating on the current agreement, but
Yeah.
whatever step increases and budgets and benefits and that kind of thing, that'll all have to be changed
Okay.
going forward, and then that'll end up with a sizable hit. I've heard could be completed by the summer, but
Mhm.
again, you never know with negotiations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and the voting machines, we'd lease them, we wouldn't buy them, it sounds like.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
it
That's-
was kind of like buy or lease. It's like you don't know what the regulations are going to change for the voting going forward, and if they come up with different ballots or anything like that. So just be better to lease for the year. We only use it once every 4 years,
Okay.
hopefully, as long as we don't got to do any by-elections.
Yeah.
But should be cheaper on the long run to just
Okay.
lease them rather than purchase.
Okay, thanks.
So, again, for the general operating budget for our general administration collective agreement, big kicker, the next one was the adjustments to actuals for contracted services. So currently our audit was under budgeted by about $8,000. And that is coming from KPMG, who does our yearly audit. IT is going up. We implemented some new cybersecurity features and multi-factor authentication and MS365 for everybody here. So that has driven up our monthly charges. But we do end up saving a good chunk of money on the financial services because I came in here. So we no longer have to outsource that. So that's helping offset that increase. It was $8,800 in total services increasing, and 8,000 of that is just for audit. So when we offset the cyber IT with finance, that's where we get an extra $800. It ends up being pretty good. And then modest inflation of 2% was used for the rest. I think everything's coming back to normal, hopefully for 2025. I know for council and their wage increase, it's all based on Victoria's CPI, and right now that's running at about 3%. So that's what their wage increase will be for the coming year, which almost in line with the old inflation that we used to have. Any questions about that? So again, back to protective services and our CMP. With the regular increases in costs for their contract, along with the major crime unit, we're looking at a total increase of $56,973. And that, 65% of that is coming from the major crime unit. That's brand new. That'll just be lumped in to be paid with the police tax. Ecom 911, however, we are planning to break that out on the tax notices as a separate levy. Just say Ecom 911 levy on the tax notice. So we'll come up with a brand new mill rate in order to collect that from everybody. But that is $120,000, unfortunately. And from what I've seen, likely one of the biggest budget items that we'll have for 2025 and even going forward.
Mr. Creek.
Yeah.
And so it's up to us to put like the levy on the notices for Ecom 911.
Yes. No,
Okay.
no, we don't have to. We can just roll it into the general municipal
Okay.
tax mill rate
Yeah.
and have it in there. But because it is so significant and it is a brand new item, after discussing with council and mayor, it seemed like, hey, let's put that on a separate line, just to know that the municipal tax rate is for our services.
Yeah.
This is for a separate one. We're not pocketing 5% or 10% or anything of this. It all goes off to the province and
Yeah.
Ecom.
Okay.
It was just a better way to, I don't know, put it out there for everybody
Yeah.
to see.
Okay, that's really good to know. And I think this charge really needs to be rethought. I have a feeling it is going to be, but I mean, you need to include it in the budget. But yeah, a separate levy is the right thing to do, but the fact that we have discretion on that is, I find that kind of strange. I mean, it's a good thing to do, clearly, but yeah, this needs to be done on a universal basis because it's essentially a province-wide service. So yeah, anyways,
Yeah.
thanks for that information.
I
Just
don't know how
wondering.
the other municipalities are gonna handle
Yeah.
it, but I think everybody, because of the kind of blowback from it, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure everybody's gonna like, let's add the extra line in there.
Totally.
We do have pretty much all the control over what we can put on a tax notice and how we're gonna collect the money that's necessary.
Okay.
And we do it for the library, we do it for the school, we do it for the regional district and that type of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's not a problem doing it for Econ 911, but
Great.
it's out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? For administration, so right now we are looking at a $62,000, $678 increase for the year. Part of that is for full wages for the CAO and CFO that we've already had, and then also the collective agreement, which is bumping up
4%.
by 4%, so a decent increase there, and that would also affect our benefits as well. And then the taxes that we also have to pay, CPP and EI. That was one of the other issues that I came across when going through the budget, was that we under budgeted for payroll taxes. We were using an old number from 2022, and then of course in 2024 there's a new CPP second tier for anybody making over $68,000, which added even more cost on there. So we were under budgeted in every department on it, and that's part of that increase is just getting everything up to actual. Not much we can do in that regard. And then throughout the year, the progress on the accessibility plan is right there. Complete the agricultural plan. The records management has been done. Digitization of records is a big thing that needs to be accomplished here. Our vault back here was full. Our offsite storage is now full because we had a great summer student in here who helped clean it all up. But with the amount of records that we're keeping, we should really move into storing it online so we don't have to pay for offsite storage costs. Save us in the long run. All we gotta do is put it onto a server. It's protected, it's got backups, that kind of thing, rather than sitting in a room that can get burned down, flooded, rats, whatever that happens. So it's something that we should be looking forward to. In the pinks, that we did notice that the digitization of microfiche actually came in under budget. So we're hoping to roll over the rest of those funds and add a little bit more in order to start digitizing our financial records, get everything out of here. Any questions about general admin? No? All right. And then,
So you mentioned the 4%, I just didn't hear what that was about.
that's
Benefits.
kind of the estimated increase in wages for the collective agreement.
Thank you.
So that's what we're aiming for. And then the last one I didn't make a slide for them because it's really tiny, for bylaw department. Again, it's going up by $3,667. That's simply impacted by the payroll tax expense adjustment and then 2% inflation on everything else. The CRD contract's not changing much there. And then that also gets cut by some of the wages for staff. So fairly good. I guess going over the 2024 budget, could have put it in sooner, but when I've gone through it, we've been over on a few items. So in legislation for council, advertising, there's a lot of advertising involved with the official community plan bylaw, the land use amendment bylaw, and a few other items throughout the year, which ended up drawing it up. So Lou and I ended up budgeting an extra, we're gonna put in $7,000. Advertising in the news and other papers has increased, so we'll have a bit of a jump there. The payroll expense, as mentioned before, impacted everybody, so we're going to be correcting on that. Insurance, this also applied to general administration and public works and fire. Insurance came in much higher than anticipated in the budget, so we'll be increasing that as well. And then memberships for UBCM and Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities increased a little more than expected, so we're over budgeting those items. Not much, less than $1,000 increase that will be needed for that. Administration, so admin wages and casual, lots of overtime for staff, for finance and admin, working on the plans, audit, financial, year-end, that type of thing. Hopefully, with me here, we can remove a good chunk of that, and I'll pitch in there. Payroll expenses good, and then internet, so Shaw increased their fees a little more than budgeted for. We can easily adjust for that, it's only a couple $100, nothing major there. Publications, so we get access to QuickScribe, that provides access to all the BC legislation changes, gives you a good idea of what's going on in the province. You can check on case law, that type of thing in there. They increased a little bit more, a couple $100. Again, nothing too crazy. Insurance, larger than anticipated again. Software maintenance, that's where it comes to the cybersecurity enhancements, MS365. So that'll be a few $1,000s more. But if you've ever read the news, right now, pretty much anybody gets tagged. We have a lot of personal information that is not supposed to be made public, and we need to protect against having that going out there to avoid lawsuits and that type of terrible thing.
So one thing we identified last year is ransomware protection, and is that included now?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
They've got endpoint detection from new firewalls. Nobody can access anything on our computers without having our cell phones around, so should be good until they find a way around.
Yeah.
So, and then contracted services, so we did the building bylaw fee amendment update, asset retirement obligations, was a brand new accounting thing that happened that confused everybody, and you guys hired somebody to come in, help them with that, identify assets that are going to be required, large outlay at the end of their life when you retire them, and to get rid of asbestos and lead paint and that type of thing. And then, so financial services, again, that's going to go down, help offset some of the other increases around here. And then the annual report was also, came in a little bit over budget. So yeah, yeah.
So just jumping back, just to be clear for everybody, the OCP bylaw changes, the amendments, we had to advertise those because we were considering rezoning, whatever, that would require changes to the OCP, but in the end, no changes were made. Is that, or perhaps that's over to, through the chair to the CEO.
I can't, oh, thanks, I can't remember if we, I don't think we changed any since I've been here, the OCP.
No.
So, yeah, so correct.
And yeah, bylaw, as I mentioned, payroll expenses, easy adjustment. That'll end up being less than $1,000 change, but something in there. So overall, we are looking at, in a dollar value anyway, wanted to avoid going into percentages and comparisons. Like if Colin goes up by 8%, that's a far greater tax hike than choosing to go up by 8%. We all have very different mill rates, and we all have very different services offered. So just saying 8% makes it very hard to compare apples and apples there. What we need to do is look at the actual dollar value of things. Those don't change, right? So 8% over a call will end up being $350. 8% of chosen, maybe looking at 175. But if everybody just sees 8, whoa, why are we doing 8%? Or why 10% is still less than the 8%. So that's where I broke down the tax implications, doing the policing increase being $254 a month, $30.50 per year on the average residential home. Average residential home being chosen for 2024 was $1.3 million. Econ comes in at $65 a year. General administration was $25, and bylaw was $1.50. So a total coming to $121.68. Again, completely draft. Lots of things can change here, especially with the collective agreement and other items that might pop up. They still haven't released the new numbers for CBD for 2025, so that'll end up impacting that not much. But by the time we get to April, we'll definitely have everything buttoned down to the last decimal there. And so I can't give you an exact mill rate because I don't know what the assessments are going to be for 2025. I haven't heard anything yet from BC Assessment in that regard. Usually there's a webinar in October, November where they give you kind of an idea of what's going on with the island, being 5 or 10% up or down, whichever way. I'm not involved in the real estate market, so I have actually no idea what's going on in the choice itself. But look at handling it there.
So looking this over, Mr. Creek, it seems to me that virtually all of these, if not all of them, are non-discretionary. In other words, these particular expenditures, although estimated, we'll be going with them regardless of anything that we might do.
For the most part, correct. Like the one that I can point out easiest would be the vote tabulating machines. You pull that. We just end up having to budget for more overtime for staff, so ends up maybe not working out for the better, but something to consider.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
And I think we got an estimate from Mr. McPherson about just over 6% tax increase for this beginning, understanding the mill rates are not there and everything.
Yeah, and because of the police tax being broken out into its own separate line, boy, I hate to say this, but with that number for policing, the police tax would actually go up by about 12% on its own, because the police tax mill rate is 16% of our general municipal mill rate. So it's very small. So while I say 12%, I'm like, oh my gosh, when you add it to if it was just in the general municipal one, we'd be looking at 3%. So it's a pretty big shift on there. I guess the one thing you play with, if you really wanted to, which would just end up increasing taxes later on for policing, we do have a significant reserve of $1.1 million there. You could increase the pool from reserves for 2025, but that would end up reducing the reserve pool that we have in 2028, 2029, resulting in an even larger tax increase while we get to the point of paying for the full 70%. Because even right now, we're not. It just started in 2022, and that's where we ended up booking $400,000 to pay for them, $200,000 out of the reserve. We ended up doing a little bit less out of the reserve, just again, couldn't provide the full staff. We're just working our way slowly up there. So not the greatest idea. It's better to just kind of have a smooth increase over time to where it's fully taxed for. And that was mentioned last year by Susan, where it's like, hey, we're going to do 17.5% over 6 years, so 3%, 3.25 every year, a little tick up. But I think that covers budget.
So, sorry, Mr. Creek.
Yeah.
It sounds like the use of the reserve, the strategy that we developed last year, you're going to maintain.
Absolutely. Yeah. We did the same thing back where in Comox, where I came from. We had the same deal because Comox was going to be breaking over 15,000 people, and so you go from paying 70% to 90%.
Yeah.
So again, say basically $1 million up, and then because of the census, we ended up squeaking like 10 people under, and then we were able to hold on to the money for another 4 years. But unfortunately, yeah, with the way policing is paid for, that 70% is likely not going to go away. So it's better just smooth it out, little increases at a time, rather than hitting somebody with, hey, we're going to increase your taxes by 35% this year and pay for all policing. So it's
Great.
better.
Any questions, committee? So far? Okay.
I guess going back to the finance committee meeting on Monday, we can talk about the capital projects that have been ongoing for 2024. So here's the summary of everything on page 3 and 4 and 5, starting off with capital. The big ones that I noticed was the paving road. Paving all the roads was halted and wait for a road survey. So that is started. If anybody's noticed the truck on the side of the road, big light flashing on top.
Yes.
Yes, please pay attention and don't run them over.
I was wondering what that was.
So they're checking on the quality of the road. They're stopping the road every 400 meters, checking out how it's looking, doing their survey. We should have that wrapped up early December. So that's when, in December, when we're talking about capital, we'll be able to bring that in, have a good 5-year plan for what should be repaired and replaced, that kind of thing. And then there was a number, we did do all the patching though. They've actually spent all of that money and even had to use some of the road maintenance budget to cover some of it. There was a big sinkhole. Anybody saw that one around?
Where are those?
Was it Levon?
Not off Levon, yeah, one of the side streets.
Yeah. So apparently when they laid these roads down way back when, they just chopped down a bunch of trees, used that as the base. The trees have now disintegrated, causing a hole to form, and then we've had to fill it all in. So there's probably something to consider, and that's likely going to happen more and more as these roads age. When I was talking to Gord from Public Works, he's noticed that at about the 22-year age is when a lot of the repairs have to be done. Right now, in the previous road project plan, we were expecting a 25-year life. We've been getting a little bit past that up to 30, and he's noticed a lot of repairs and maintenance on things over 22 years. We'll see what the survey says, kind of see if it agrees with what he's been observing, and then also really comes down to the actual usage of the roads. Lots of things have changed. He's told us about. Well, this used to have a lot of dump trucks driving over it for a couple of years, so that wasted away a couple. Fast forward the useful life of it, but see how it goes.
So when you mentioned survey, that's covered, it's called the Roads and Culverts Management Plan?
Correct.
Thank you.
And then fire department, they put a number of things on hold. They were good with their, what was it? Positive pressure fan. Apparently they've got 2 nice backups that they're using right now, so they didn't need to use that. The SCBA bottles, that has actually increased in cost to replace, and we rolled it over to the next year. Same thing with the hose replacement. She wanted to do a big bulk order rather than a single one because of the cost of shipping. That was okay with that. So we'll go over those funds for next year. Probably do a little more. But the rest of them, so I've included a funding source in the 4th column there on where the money's coming from. So we've got a number of great reserves here for roads, trails, that type of thing. So we've been using those, some grants as well. The Infrastructure Bank of Canada was helping pay for a lot of the schoolwork. And then where I say taxation, that was coming out of current year taxation or the surplus from last year. I just consider that taxation as well. So a lot of them come from gas tax. That has a fairly open definition of what you can use money on, so you can spend it on quite a few things, and that's what you've been doing, so nothing wrong with that.
Just wondered, I think when I'm looking at the Trails Capital Development, there's a $20,000 roughly for the Duke Roadie survey. And through the chair, Councillor Shukin, I think we heard from Mr. Payette that the full $20,000 will be spent on a survey, so there'll be no money to do any trail building. And our initial plan was to build do the survey and then do the first phase of the trail. And so I was wondering if we should curtail some of the survey, maybe the top end, in order to get something done on the trail. But
So when I
it may not
came-
be for today's meeting, but just something to put on the table.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So we have, Bob actually called the engineer involved in that survey, and so we've actually been quoted about $11,000 for that.
Oh, okay.
So we'll come in just under that 35 total.
Yeah.
Not a lot, especially not to do that type of trail. But we do have the trail replacement reserve, which is sitting at over $100,000 right now. I think if I want to pull a number, 115, 120, something like that. So you got a little bit more to actually develop, but
Sorry, so it's not $20,000 to do the trail. 11,000. So there'll still be 9,000 to build the first part of the trail.
Yeah.
Great news. Thank you.
and then the one-time expenses. So what I'm needing special projects in this budget. It was called one-time expenses last year. A lot of things going on. We're about to get half of those items done, and that's where a lot of this is going to end up being rolled over to 2025. The fire building replacement review, that's ongoing right now. Will not be done, but the funding is probably going to be needed for next year. The accessibility plan, still working on. The hydrologist, that project ended up being changed through the year, so we might need some of that money from next year to complete it. The crossing guards, school district is now paying for that to include. They just made us pay for, I guess, the first year of it. The microfiche management came in well under budget, which is great. I figure if we can keep that money rolled over for next year's for digital records, that would be wonderful. Municipal hall upgrades, we've got some work done. We could probably roll this over. We've always got some budget available for municipal hall and like building upgrades, so we might not need to keep that around. Budget software, it's currently in the early implementation stage. I'm hoping to have that wrapped up by the end of the year, early next year. That's going to help clean up our GL account structure, give a different budget report for next year, and then make our annual reporting to the province a lot easier. It would help sum up account numbers, if anybody knows about GL numbers and organization under object codes and account departments. Makes it a lot smoother. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, question?
Sorry, on the hydrologist, if for some reason we collectively thought that there was a good need for that person's services this year, I think the money's still there if we decided.
We hired the hydrologist.
Okay, so we can, okay.
So we already hired somebody based on the retention pond designs.
Okay,
And then the hydrologist was reviewing the designs
yeah,
and the flow and the quality.
okay, yeah.
And
yeah,
then now there's a change in the location of the pond. And so we've kind of halted the hydrologist until we get through the next round of dialogue with Langford. So,
Okay.
so
Sounds good.
yeah.
Great.
So we haven't, it's 10, is it 10 for the hydrologist or 15?
20?
20? Oh, we haven't spent nowhere near that
Great.
to this point. Maybe 3, I think.
Oh, we haven't even paid her yet.
Yeah, well, so,
Okay.
okay.
Great, thanks.
And then, the roads and culverts, so the XC bike park, nothing's happened with that yet. I'm not too sure if you guys want to roll that over. That'll be a discussion here coming up in December.
I'm surprised at how much use that park gets.
Last night, or Monday night, they did, I took a bunch of pictures.
Oh, nice.
And they said, can we improve this better? And I said, hey, you want to come out for a work party? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're super keen. They're gonna call me.
Yeah, got a little bit of money.
What was the $5,000 for? There was a sign, I think? Was that-
It was a couple of different things. I think we just kind of wrapped it up. It's stuff on the property because there's fencing at the market as well that needs to replace or go in place where the hedge was and that. So it was just easier to put it in like a line item. The bike park needs a little bit of TLC as well. I mean, moving the sign doesn't cost much, and replacing the sign's been tagged, it's quite damaged, so those don't cost a lot, but there's a couple of few little projects just on the property.
It does sound like a good idea, Councillor Donaldson, to talk to users and see what they would like done.
Yeah, they were definitely letting me know on Monday night. That's good.
Can I ask what the housing initiative is? I don't remember that. $172,864.
So I'll make a quick correction. I screwed up on this. When I was looking at the previous budget workbook, I didn't see it, but that is paid for by a grant, not through taxation. But it's really related to the bill 44. Is that the number?
46%, yeah.
And so we're paying to, half of that basically goes off to our engineer, planner to come in for an extra day every week. So that's helping pay for her salary. And then I figured, I don't know what the exact rest of it's going to, maybe bylaw changes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But majority of that will be rolled over to next year. Not something that we can go spend on whatever we want. It has to be based on that, since it's from the grant.
So this is the, we have to, by Fiat, have to do a housing plan by December 2024. So that's what this is, to pay for the plan.
2025, I think.
And then the OCP gets revised in 2025.
Yeah. Is it
Great, so
Yeah,
this is
that's
paying,
right,
this is
that's
paying our planner.
planner and some engineering consulting if it is related to housing?
Thank you.
And then plan for the bufferland. Sounds like we're going to be moving that over next year. Nothing's happened this year. And that's kind of where I get into the workload related to the different projects. Might be something to consider kind of going forward when we get to December. We have a lot of projects that are going to be rolling over to next year. Do we have the capacity to add new ones? Can't say for sure, but something to certainly consider rather than just adding in 10 more projects and we're gonna get 3 done and then we just keep rolling over and over. Like maybe get a year to get caught up on everything, save up a little bit more money than whatever we don't spend, have a surplus in 2025. Use that for 2026 special projects.
When we developed our, through Councilor Donaldson, when we developed our strategic plan in 2020, in February, I think, I was trying to be as modest in some of the writing as possible in terms of what we could get done. But it is, I mean, it's a tough, it is pretty tough to get a lot of things done in the course of a year. So, I mean, your point, I think, is well taken. And if we do another planning process, we should keep that in mind. But, so anyways, it's just reflecting on.
That was a big thing. When I first joined municipal government, I was getting interviewed and the CFO was there. It's like, well, when you find that blind spot, it's going to take us about 5 years to actually correct it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's insane. So I went into work, got 5 different ideas from accounts receivable of what we can do for finding secondary suites and that type of thing. Jumped into it, hit the wall. There's a number of departments that you actually have to get involved with and that are also, hey, we already have enough work to keep us busy. Don't come down here and add another 10-20% to my workload.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, all right, slow down. As much as you want to just jump at it, it takes some sweet time to actually get it done, unfortunately.
Maybe that's the time then to ask. The fire building replacement review was to be completed by September 30th, and then we hear about it in October. Work ongoing. Where are we at with that now?
That is in progress, thankfully. There was a little bit of lack of communication on their end.
We had an extraordinary meeting this summer just to approve that, I guess, to get it on time. But
Yeah, and so they are working on it right now. I don't know the exact timeline of them completing it, but we'll probably receive a bill by the end of the year, at least on that. So we'll spend some money. I don't know when they're going to be done, though. I don't know. Any questions about the capital special projects?
Sounds good.
If anybody has any questions regarding the regular budget?
Sorry, the roads and culvert management plan, we're expecting that to be done by December?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yeah, should be, looks like the first week, second week. I'm really hoping the first week. That way we can put it into the final budget presentation for December.
Great.
And have a really good idea for the 5-year plan on what needs to be done.
I'll just comment to council is the longer into the year it takes to approve capital projects, the harder it is for us to get them done in that year because we're late in the game of getting consultants and getting our tenders out. And so the sooner we can, council can approve capital projects, the more likely it is we can get things done quicker in the year. Like, for example, the roof project here, we waited way too long. And by the time we got it let out, we couldn't get the company out here. So we have to wait another year to do a roof that needs to be replaced. So projects like the roof, the sooner you can approve that, the sooner we can get going on it. And we don't have to wait for all of them to be approved at the same time. We can get going. It's up to you.
No, well, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think this is one of the reasons that Mr. Creek is bringing this to us as early as he is historically we haven't done it this early, so this is good. We can get ahead of it. And I mean, it's a lot of things are going to be delayed, the BC assessment, that sort of thing, but certainly getting some of our ambitions and plans and the different departments' workload sorted out before the year is half over is more cognizant of reality.
Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Pyatt. I think the other part of it, thanks to Mr. Creek for bringing this forward today, we can see a number of these are just simply rollovers from last year as opposed to brand new considerations, new priorities. And so I appreciate the comment.
Any other questions for Mr. Creek?
Oh, I did, just for clarity, perhaps the Flesh Road Bridge, I think that's something that's perhaps not related to the road survey, but we should consider at some point this year, I suppose.
Yeah, I believe, talking with CAO and Public Works, I think the cost on that is going to be far higher than what has been budgeted for, so that might be something that hopefully we'll get a good number here in December to kind of look at, and if it is a major priority, one of the ones that you can put the stamp on in December, and we can get that ball rolling before January or February, put out the tender, and make sure everybody's getting in there by early spring, when the weather's cleared up.
Well, the time to do the bridge is when the creek is at its lowest, so that's middle of the summer. So we kind of missed that window, so probably in likelihood, we're probably looking at, next summer when it's that window of opportunity.
And it's a small item, but I'm happy to see, we've heard lots from the audience about the new sound system. And Council Chambers is looking forward to that. I think that'll be a big help for everyone.
I think they're scheduled in for next week.
Oh, wonderful.
Not next week, close. It's coming.
Yeah, coming. And then there's a couple of items that will be thrown in for accessibility for 2025. And one of them is a hearing loop in here to help out with anybody that does have a
Very
hearing.
good.
And we'll patch into the actual system that we're relying on the mic. So
Cool.
that'll be one item that hopefully you guys can approve. Yeah.
Would it help if we put some baffles on the top walls to kind of attend, like, how they acoustically do that kind of thing?
That actually is what those are, but maybe they need to be improved. 'Cause
Yeah.
they're not that
It's such a big space that.
up there, yeah. Those are soundboards.
I wonder if the experts who are putting the sound system probably would have some
Maybe
view of
have
that.
an idea there,
I thought, wow, I thought you were asking Jeffrey that, and I was waiting for this answer. And I thought, finance
Yeah.
and sound engineering? That's a great combination.
That's right.
Unfortunately, I didn't take that in school.
Yeah, I do have a question for you, Mr. Creed, regarding the Teams program that we're getting or have gotten. Speaking about accessibility, is there a closed caption on that for our viewers?
Good question. I random assumption, yes, but do you know if there's a closed caption on that thing?
I don't know, but I can find out.
Thank you.
I want to see it would be easy to have.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Only in provinces.
Great. Good. Okay, any other queries, committee? Okay,
I guess I just have a question.
yes.
On the capital patching, this will be something I guess we'll pick up once the road management plan is in place. But hearing that we used up all of our budget this year and didn't complete the work makes me think that'll be an important discussion when it does come.
Mhm. Mhm. Those have been very good improvements, the patching and the crack sealing over the last year, so big improvements. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the revised schedule of how we're going to go about maintaining our roads, simply because usage has changed
Mhm.
a lot over the years. I see more and more cul-de-sacs breaking down because of big trucks turning around and stuff for recycle or refuse or what have you.
Mhm.
Okay, so the recommendation is that we receive this report for information, and I thank Mr. Creek for the time that he's put into this. This is comprehensive. And it's a good start to where we're going to go.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor F. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
And correspondence, we have a letter from this McPherson. Several of those things I think have already been addressed. So I appreciate hearing from our residents, including public participation, both at this meeting and the one on Monday night. And we will, over time, address the concerns that our residents have. And if not, I encourage them to contact me, which some of them already are, which is awesome. And I'll endeavor to pass those on to Mr. Creed because I won't be able to answer all of them. Okay, so seeing that we have no more, I would ask actually at this point if there's anybody from the public that would like to comment on what they've heard today. This would be the time. Come up to the podium, state your name and street, and ask the committee or Mr. Creek or LCIO your question.
Avril Yoakum, Windfall Road. Listening to the crack ceiling, Stephanie Longstaff stood up a few months ago mentioning big dump trucks used to pay. Was there, and she was Public Works, and we don't do that anymore. Is that possible to follow up on that? And because there's so many dump trucks.
That actually came up when I was campaigning in a specific neighborhood where there was a lot of soil deposits happening, and when big trucks go around corners, they start breaking down the pavement. And I believe at one point in time, I could be speaking out of turn, but quite a few years back, we used to have a permitting process where they'd have to get a permit, and it was the trucking companies, but I don't know.
So along that though too, sorry, the problem with the trucks now, they're going on to the First Nations lands, so they don't stop in October when we say no more soil deposits. They're still running, and that's all year round. So I just thought because Stephanie mentioned it and being on Public Works, I thought she must have had knowledge of it. Maybe that would be some money in the pot.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, yeah, there was at one point a time when you could permit for commercial truck deliveries and that kind of thing in a district or municipality. Unfortunately, that legislation was removed 7 years ago. So one of the first things I noticed though, when I got to Comox, was like, hey, where'd all this money go? And I'm like, oh no, the legislation disappeared on that. Like UBCM pulled it away. And I was like, oh, darn. Okay, well, makes my job easier that we don't have to track down these people and try and ticket them when they don't come in to pay. But yeah, unfortunately, the promise took away our ability to permit for that. So we're out of pocket on that as well.
Good afternoon, Brent Donaldson, Challenge Court. Just a question for CFO. This new download charge for the e-com, can you tell me how that number was established? Is it by per capita or population or household?
Yep. So what I heard in our meetings with them, it's based on per capita, and then also based on the number of calls in that are being dispatched.
Averaged over years.
Okay, so the average over a number of years that have been coming in.
Yeah.
So they did have a range of fees, like the lowest was going to be 105. In their letter, they indicate go for the higher number. That's probably what it's going to end up being. So that's how they ended up figuring it out, unfortunately.
Any other questions from the gallery? Thank you for those questions, residents. Okay, so seeing no more questions from the committee or the public, I'd like to call this meeting to adjourn. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Councillor Shukin and second by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.